Hello everyone, welcome to Come Sit at My Table. We're Tom and Melissa and we're glad you're here for this video today. I am making an old-fashioned recipe. This is my mom's recipe for bread pudding. Now if my mom were still alive, she would be 91 years old. This is the recipe she used pretty much the entire time that I was growing up and living at home. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think we had it because it was pretty cheap to make and it used up leftover stale bread. It was a way to use up something that was kind of past its prime, but they didn't want to throw it away. So bread pudding was one of the desserts we had the most. Now, we did not have a lot of desserts when I was growing up. We pretty much had meat and potato meals. But occasionally we would have a dessert. And a lot of times it was bread pudding. So let's talk about what you're going to need to make my mom's bread pudding. First, you're going to need some bread. Now today, I'm using this Nature's Own perfectly crafted, thick sliced white bread. You are going to probably want thick sliced bread for this. My mom never used thick sliced bread. She was just using what we had left over and it was just regular bread. But if you use thick sliced bread, you're going to need about 7 or 8 slices. If you use just regular white bread, you're probably going to need about 10, 11, maybe 12 slices. You can just kind of judge it by how full your pan is. But I'm using this bread today. Actually, my very favorite bread to use for this recipe is a brioche bread, but our stores didn't have any. I went to the store and tried to find brioche bread and could not find any. So instead I'm using this and it will be perfectly fine. The best thing you can do is use stale bread. So if you've got bread that's left over, bread that's kind of past its prime, it's a little too stale for sandwiches and you don't know what to do with it, that's perfect for this. Or if you want to just use fresh bread, you can leave it lay out, put it out on a cutting board, cover it with a tea towel or paper towels, and leave it out overnight or leave it out all day, and it will kind of dry out and become stale. If you don't have time for that, that's perfectly fine too. You can use it fresh. So either way is okay, but you're going to need about 7 or 8 slices of thick bread or about 10 slices of regular white bread. You're also going to need 4 tablespoons of butter melted. And we're just going to drizzle that over the bread after we get it cubed and in our pan. You're also going to need some golden raisins. Now, my mom never used golden raisins. She just used regular raisins, just the dark raisins. But I love golden raisins. So that's what I use. If you love raisins and you just you're just addicted to raisins, you may want to increase this to a cup. That's fine. If you don't like raisins, leave it out. You don't have to use it. A lot of times when Melissa and I have made this, we haven't had raisins in the cupboard, so we just don't use any. But if you have them and you like raisins, a half a cup is about what we think is right for this. You're also going to need 4 eggs. You're going to need 2.5 cups of whole milk. You're going to need 3/4 cup of just regular granulated sugar, white sugar, 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Then you're going to need a pinch or a little more. I'm actually using 1/4 of a teaspoon of allspice and the same amount of nutmeg. Now, if you're not a big allspice and nutmeg fan, you can just put a pinch in or leave it out if you want to. That's okay. But I'm using 1/4 of a teaspoon of each. You don't have to necessarily use that much. We like it in ours. You're also going to want some vanilla. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon of vanilla in mine. Now, that's everything for the bread pudding. After we get the bread pudding made and baked and take it out, we're also going to make a sauce to put over it, a vanilla caramel sauce to spoon over it when we put it in our bowls or dishes. So we'll do that after we bake the bread pudding. All right, let's get started. We are going to start by cubing up our bread. And all we have to do is just cube it into, oh, I don't know, maybe 1-inch slices or 1-inch cubes. You don't want it tiny. You want pretty good sized pieces, but not huge either. So I cut it that direction. Then I just come back and cut it this direction and just cut it into cubes. I think you could see I cut 5 cuts one direction and then about 3 or 4 the other direction. And then I just take those and put them into my 8-inch greased pan. And I do just kind of force them in there. You do want it in there tight. You don't want a lot of empty spaces. So if you do this and you feel like it's not full enough, add some more bread. If you do it and it's too full, then maybe you don't want to do that last slice. You want nice cubes of bread. Actually, I think I did 4 slices that way, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. 4 that direction and 3 this direction. Now, you can just force them down in there. Make them fit because you do want it to be fairly compact. This is a dense dessert. So just kind of break that bread up so they're not all stuck together. Now I have 8 slices, but if you don't want to put that many, you don't have to. Okay, so you can see that I'm just going to push it down in there. I want it tight. By the way, I did not take the crust off my bread. A lot of people do when they make bread pudding. And if you don't like the crust in yours, then by all means remove the crust. My parents never did remove it when they made this, so I don't either.
Wasting nothing.
That's right. It would have been a waste and they didn't want to do that, so. All right, now we're going to take our 4 tablespoons of butter and we're just going to drizzle that right over the bread. Just let that kind of soak in, run down in there, get all over that bread, soak into it really well. Okay, now we're going to let that just sit there and kind of soak up while we make our custard to pour over it. All right, so there it is. Oh, don't forget my raisins. I'm going to tell you, while I was getting all my ingredients together, I got a little worried about the raisins. I started thinking, am I going to have enough left over for the bread pudding?
On the raisins.
Because I ate just about that whole box. I love golden raisins. If you are using the raisins, make sure they're distributed well. You don't want somebody to get a piece and not have any raisins. Okay, so that's all in there. Let me wash my hands. Again, those raisins are a little sticky. So get that off of me. All right. Now, we're going to start blending our custard. And we want 2.5 cups of milk. I'm going to put it in first because I can measure it right on the side of my blender. And that way I know that I've got 2.5 cups without having to dirty a measuring cup. And then we're going to put in our eggs. I'm going to break those one at a time right into our bowl and put those in. And before anyone gets upset that I had these eggs in the bowl that I'm cracking them into, I did wash my eggs beforehand. So you don't have to worry about me having dirty eggs in the bowl and then putting them into the blender. I did not do that. Don't splash out of there, milk. Okay. Made sure these were good and clean. You know, there's not much better than an old-fashioned comfort food. Something you remember from your childhood, something that your parents or your grandparents made. It just brings back great memories, doesn't it? All right, so we have that in. Clean up my mess here. I spilled a little milk. That's okay. Now we're going to add our sugar and our brown sugar. I did pack that in a little bit. And in with our spices. And of course, our teaspoon of vanilla. You know, I've always heard that the cap on the vanilla holds 1 teaspoon. And I've tried it, I've measured it. And for some brands of vanilla, that's true. For others, it's not. But it's close. That one is a little over a teaspoon. But that's okay. It won't hurt. By the way, my mixer is really old.
Old recipe, old.
When I built our house, years before Melissa and I got married, my grandmother gave me this mixer, and it also had a blender bowl, a mixer bowl, and beaters with it. She gave it to me for Christmas the year that I moved into our house. And let me tell you, it's been a workhorse. I have used this thing, well, since 1990, and it's still going. I am absolutely convinced that I will never own another blender that lasts as long as this one has. Okay. Now, your custard mixture is going to be a little frothy. That's okay. We're just going to very slowly pour it over our raisins and our bread. And you're going to want that to soak in. That bread has to soak up all this custard mixture. So after we get it poured on there, we're going to have to let this sit for at least 15 minutes or more. I'll just tell you, sometimes I have forgotten it. And it has sat for almost an hour. But that's okay. That just lets it soak into that bread really well. But 15 minutes is good. Just let it sit and soak up that mixture of milk and eggs and sugar and spices. Oops, spilled a little bit. So you can see I'm just letting it go down around all that bread. Soak in there really well. Pouring it down in those cracks and holes. Just filling it up. You would think with all that bread and raisins in there, there'd be no way it would hold all of this. But it does. There have been times that I've had to pour most of it in and wait for a little while and let it soak into the bread before I could get the rest of it in there. But I always get it all in. Doesn't that look good?
It does look really nice.
And you know, there's just not much better in the kitchen than a food that holds memories for you. It's just nice to be able to make something and remember the people who made it for you. And you know, it wasn't a very special dessert when I was a kid. It wasn't special at all. It was just bread pudding. But now, it's a pretty special dessert. Okay, so we have all the mixture on there. We're just going to press it down. You can see how the custard is kind of squeezing up around that bread as I press it down. We just want to push it all down in there. Make sure every piece of bread is getting soaked. Make sure there's some on every, and if you have a piece that's not fitting in really well. It's sticking up too high. Just move it. Okay, now we have preheated our oven to 350 degrees. We're going to let this soak 15 minutes, and then I'm going to put it in the oven. We will bake it for about 40 minutes. I'll check it. It should be finished at 40 minutes. If it needs 5 more minutes, I'll add 5 more, but I think it'll be ready at 40 minutes. It should not be dry. It should still be moist. If it's dried out, you've baked it too long. You want it to be nice and moist down in there. The top will be firm. You'll be able to feel it and feel that the top is firm, but when you push on it, you can tell it's not hard. It's kind of soft and squishy down in there. So about 40 minutes. When it's finished baking, we will come back and let you see what the bread pudding looks like, and then we will make our vanilla caramel sauce. So we'll be right back. Our bread pudding is just about ready to come out of the oven. I think there's about 10 seconds left on it. I wanted just to come back and let you see what it looks like when it first comes out of the oven. And then we will let it cool for a few minutes. And then we'll come back and make our vanilla caramel sauce. And we'll eat some of the bread pudding. But I wanted you to see what it looks like when it first comes out. Melissa mentioned this to me, and I wanted to tell you that I do like it warm. Okay, you can see there how it has puffed up. You can see that the top is a little firm. It moves, but it's still soft. You can see that down in there, it's still spongy, but the top is firm. I do like it warm. I don't like it real hot, but I do like it while it's still warm. But I really like it when it's cold. I like it straight out of the refrigerator with some of the vanilla caramel sauce over it. So I think this is delicious warm, but I think it's really good cold. So we'll let this cool for just, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes. We'll come back and make our vanilla caramel sauce, and then we'll dip some out for you. We'll be right back. Our bread pudding has been cooling for about 30 minutes, and now we're ready to make our vanilla caramel sauce. So here's what you're going to need to make this sauce to pour over your bread pudding. You need 1/2 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1 stick, which is 1/2 cup of butter, and 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. Then after you bring that to a boil and boil it for about 1 minute to 2 minutes, a minute is okay, then you're going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So let's get that started. Now, we need a stick of butter, and we're going to melt that in a pan, which I have already done. You can see here that it's already melted, and we're just going to add our 1/2 cup of sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar and our 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. So let's put all that in and bring it to a boil. So I'm going to turn it up, and we're going to start whisking it. We want to get that all combined and bring it to a boil. Now you can boil it 1 minute, and that will be fine. If you boil it 2 minutes, that'll be okay too. I wouldn't go much more than that because you sure don't want to scorch it. You just want to bring it together as a sauce. And we're not going to pour it over the top of the bread pudding. We will save this to pour over each individual serving. After you, after you dish it out, put it in dishes or on plates, then you can spoon some caramel sauce over top of it. Now, while this is coming to a boil, let's talk about the bread for your bread pudding. I know I mentioned earlier that brioche bread or egg bread are my 2 favorites. And I really did want brioche today, but I couldn't find it. But let me tell you, you can use any bread for bread pudding. My mom didn't always have just a loaf of bread. Sometimes she used hot dog buns that were left over. Sometimes hamburger buns. And a lot of times we didn't have hamburger or hot dog buns. We used white bread for hamburgers and hot dogs. But if she had them and they were left over, they went into the bread pudding. You can use croissants. A lot of people like to use croissants for bread pudding, and that's really good. Anything really can be used. Melissa and I were at the store picking up a few things, and I noticed in the bakery area, they did have some flavored brioche bread. They had some chocolate brioche, they had some vanilla brioche, and they even had a cinnamon brioche bread. I'm going to tell you, I think any of those would be really good. I would think, for the fall, this time of year, cinnamon brioche bread would be wonderful in a bread pudding. Okay, we've got it to a boil, so I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute and let it boil. Experiment with it. Try something new. If you see a chocolate brioche bread and you want to try that, by all means, give it a try.
Or if you just don't want to be wasteful and use up what you have.
Absolutely.
Either way works.
Absolutely. If you've got leftover buns, hot dog, hamburger buns, by all means, use those up. That's a way not to be wasteful. I was even thinking a few minutes ago, Melissa and I both like cinnamon raisin bread. I bet cinnamon raisin bread would be wonderful as bread pudding. I've never done that, but I had thought about it.
Would you leave out the other raisins?
Well, you could, or you could put them in. Depends on how much you like raisins. If you wanted extra raisins, then by all means, put them in. Okay, this has boiled for 1 minute. So I'm going to turn that off, and we will pour that into our bowl. Actually, I'm afraid that's a little too hot to pour in there right now. I sure don't want to break that. So I'm just going to let that cool off a second before I pour it in there. It's awfully hot.
That would be a sad state of affairs to have it spilling all over the counter, wouldn't it?
Oh, if it broke and that ran all over the counter, I'd have a mess to clean up. I wouldn't expect somebody else to do that for me if I made that mess. So I wouldn't ask you to do that.
But you wouldn't be upset if I did, though.
Well, no, of course not. Okay, now,
you add the vanilla?
I'm getting ready to do that.
Okay.
Now, we need to add our 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to use my lid as a guide. And I will whisk that in. Turn my fire off, I forgot. Oh man, that smells good. All right, so let's pour our sauce into a bowl. Is that pretty sauce or what?
That is really pretty.
Vanilla caramel sauce.
This is a nice fall dessert, isn't it?
It is a great fall dessert.
But for your mama, it was an anytime dessert. But...
For my mom, it was an anytime there was leftover bread dessert. Yeah.
Hey, but, that's a practical thing to do with it.
That's right. Absolutely. Wish I could go back and have her make bread pudding for me one more time. But,
It's a good memory.
it's a great memory. And I love that food holds memories for us. That's just something really special. Okay. So there's our bread pudding. And I'm not going to take a lot because I'll have some later. And I'm going to put some of this sauce right over the top of it. Yum. Now let me tell you folks, that is good enough that it'll make your tongue jump up and slap your brains out.
That's the
Sorry.
silliest thing I've heard.
It's an old West Virginia expression, I guess. I don't know. Oh, man, that smells good. You can smell that caramel sauce. You can smell the bread, pudding. Want that raisin in there. You want the first bite?
No, not sure
It
how
won't be that hot.
Okay, I'll try.
I promise. I won't let it be that hot.
Okay. I hate to burn the top of my mouth.
I know. I'll test it first.
Okay.
Oh, it's not that hot.
Okay.
I promise.
That's yummy, Tom. You did really well.
Oh my goodness.
And you're right, the sauce really sets it apart.
That sauce. Pardon me a moment if I have a tear in my eye.
Makes you think of your mom.
It does. That is so good. Thank you for watching our videos. We really, really do appreciate it. You have no idea how much we appreciate that so many of you have stuck with us and you've subscribed to our channel and you've shared our videos. We really do appreciate it. And I wish I had stronger words to use to thank you for sticking with us and sharing our videos. Let me remind you that right below this video, you'll see the title of the video. If you click in that box will expand. Melissa always puts the written recipe in that box for you. You can always come back and find it. You can copy and paste it and print it if you want. That's up to you. But that recipe is right under the video where you see the title. Just click the title and you'll see it. Also, our contact information is below that recipe. If you would, we would sure appreciate you clicking the thumbs up right below the video. That just says you liked our video, and that helps YouTube know that people enjoyed it, so they will share it more to other people. Also, if you've never done it, we would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. The more subscribers we have, the more YouTube posts our videos. So we really would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button, and we sure do appreciate those of you that have already clicked the subscribe button. Right beside of it's a little bell, looks like a little dinner bell. If you'll click it in the word all, YouTube will notify you every time we add a new video, so you'll never miss one. And of course, we do appreciate the kind comments. We've had so many people comment on our videos, and 99.9% of them are really nice comments, and we sure do appreciate those. All right, thank you again for watching our videos. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. But we want you to remember that you are always welcome to come sit at my table. Have a great day, and go make some food memories. See ya.